The whispering shadows, the sun dipped beneath the horizon, leaving the small village of Durgapur bathed in twilight. A cool breeze rustled through the leaves, carrying with it a chill that seemed unseasonal. Riya adjusted her shawl, tugging it tighter around her shoulders as she hurried down the narrow dirt path that led through the forest. She had stayed later than usual at the market, helping her father with the shop, and now, with darkness creeping in, she felt the weight of something unseen. Watching her every move, the village was old, much older than Riya could remember, with stories that were whispered only behind closed doors. Tales of spirits, of shadows that came alive in the night, haunted the people of Durgapur. Many laughed at the superstitions, but Riya had grown up with these stories, listening to her grandmother's chilling accounts of things that lurked just beyond the light. As Riya walked faster, the trees around her seemed to close in, their branches twisted like skeletal hands reaching out to touch her. She could hear her own breathing, fast and shallow, blending with the distant sound of an owl hooting. But beneath these sounds, there was something else, something faint, like a whisper carried on the wind, Riya. Her heart skipped a beat, and she froze in her tracks. She turned her head, glancing behind her. Nothing. The path was empty, the village lights just barely visible in the distance. She could still make it if she hurried, Riya. This time, the whisper was clearer, more insistent. It wasn't the wind. Someone, or something, was calling her name. Against her better judgment, Riya scanned the trees, her eyes darting from shadow to shadow. Her fingers trembled as she clutched her shawl. "Who's there?" she called out, her voice breaking the eerie silence. No answer. Just the trees swaying gently, their leaves whispering in the growing darkness. Swallowing hard, Riya turned and began walking again, this time almost running. Her mind raced with the stories her grandmother used to tell. Ghosts, jinns, and malevolent spirits that preyed on the living. She had always dismissed them as old wives' tales meant to scare children into behaving. But now, alone on this dark path, the stories felt too real. Suddenly, the air grew colder. It was as if the warmth of the day had been sucked away, leaving only a bone-chilling cold in its wake. The hairs on Riya's neck stood on end. She could feel it now, something was behind her. Slowly, she turned around, her eyes wide with fear. There, standing in the middle of the path, was a figure cloaked in shadow. It was tall, its form shifting as if made of smoke. No face, no features, just darkness. It stood still, watching her with an intensity that made her stomach churn. "Riya." The whisper came again, this time from the figure itself. Its voice was soft, almost seductive, but there was a malice beneath it, a threat that made Riya's blood run cold. She took a step back, her mind screaming at her to run. But her legs wouldn't move. It was as if she was rooted to the spot, paralyzed by fear. The figure began to glide toward her, its movements smooth and unnatural, like it wasn't bound by the laws of this world. Riya's breath caught in her throat as she finally found the strength to move. She turned and sprinted down the path, her heart pounding in her chest. The village was so close. She could see the faint glow of the lanterns in the distance. If she could just make it there. Behind her, the whispering grew louder, more urgent. She didn't dare look back, her feet pounded against the dirt, her shawl fluttering behind her like a banner. She could hear the figure gaining on her, its presence pressing down on her like a weight. Her lungs burned, but she didn't stop. She couldn't stop. Just as she reached the edge of the village, the whispering stopped. The air seemed to shift, and the cold receded. Riya stumbled to a halt, gasping for breath as she glanced behind her. The path was empty. She stood there for a long moment, her chest heaving, her mind struggling to comprehend. What had just happened? The figure, the whispers, it was gone. But the fear lingered, wrapping itself around her like a second skin. Riya hurried home, her mind racing. She couldn't shake the feeling that the figure was still out there, watching, waiting for the right moment to strike again. But as she entered her house and bolted the door behind her, she tried to push the thought from her mind. That night, sleep did not come easily. Every creak, every rustle of the wind outside her window made her jump. And when she finally drifted off, her dreams were filled with shadows that whispered her name.